We're going to be in Houston on June the 5th. If you are a listener in Houston and you'd like some FaceTime with us, we might not be able to give you 3 hours, but I bet we could give you 30 minutes around a coffee or a taco. We'd love for you to shout. You can write to me, Steve at abrahamswallet.com, and we'd love to see you. And I must throw out Friday, June 6th in Plano. That's North Dallas. One of our listeners, a good friend of the pod, has a lovely home, a big spread, a nice big lovely patio on the back with the pickleball court and the whole thing. We're going to have an Abe's Wallet gathering and just a party, just to spend time with people. It's going to be very casual, but there will be delicious Texas food there. The evening of Friday, June 6th. We would love for you to be part of that. Write to me, Steve at abrahamswallet.com, and we'll plan on seeing you then. Run your home and your dough like a biblical boss. Mark, I know that you don't know what's going to happen today because I've chosen to spring things on you. But today we're going to have, I really think, a fun episode. A couple of news items. People who are on our email list, God bless you. By the way, I'm going to give a couple of administrative things here. If you're not on our email list, we would love for you to be. That not only means that you kind of know events and stuff going on, and you'll get reminders of, did you miss that great episode about the Trump economy? Well, you should check that out. But we like to keep our people abreast of what's going on with us. Similarly, I just had a conversation with a guy this week who said, "Oh, love the show, listen to you guys, enjoy the podcast. And tell me again, how do I become part of How can I get," you guys reference these conversations that happen at and I couldn't, I was a little perplexed that he would have been familiar with our online community, and not known how to get to be a part of it. So I'll just tell the people the entry fee into is a donation of any kind to help keep the lights on at the show. It's not really because you're paying to enter. It's because that's really the only way that we can think of to go like, well, who are our committed people? Who are the people that are kind of on the inside as opposed to a random listener who actually believes in what we're doing? Well, I guess it'd be somebody that'd be willing to put a couple of bucks toward the idea of what we're doing. And then we just go, great, well, let's give you entrance to this community of people. So that's how you get into both the email list and our being on our donor support team. Both of those things happen at our website. So that is abrahamswallet.com. On the landing page, you'll see join our tribe, and that'll take you to our donation page, and you will join the tribe. I'm sorry, am I getting those wrong? There's a donate page and there's a join our tribe. Is that the email list, the join our tribe?
Join our tribe email list.
That's the email list. Okay. And then there's donate, and that gets you to Okay. News item that you already know if you're on our email list. We are looking for an executive director. And this is somebody who is going to know all of the details of what happens at Abraham's Wallet, and also basically be a project manager, give some oversight and some executive direction to things like fundraising, managing all of the conferences that we do, the weekends, the content creation, and helping us think strategically even about the podcast, YouTube channel, etc. I'll just put out to this audience, if you know some sharp executive type that has a strategic mind, and they think either at the stage I'm at in my career, I could take on Abe's Wallet as a side hustle, which would be paid, or I think this is where I want my career to go, which is with a 501c3 ministry organization for young families. We'd love for you to get in touch with us. We're actually really pleased with the way that our search is going. We think we have some good candidates, but we don't want to be stupid and cut off the search just because we think we have a good bird in hand. Okay. I would like to review for you the Abe's Wallet target audience. You might be listening and saying, man, am I who you're looking for? Is this show really for me? I'll tell you. Abraham's Wallet's target is the young man who's maybe getting married, or he's been married a minute and he's just realizing, oh shoot, somebody's supposed to be in charge here. Somebody's supposed to have a plan. And this is the young man who maybe doesn't have much financial training, uh, isn't really aware of what the Bible has to say about money. So this young man might think, isn't my responsibility before God just to give it all away? And he needs a heading and a plan for putting it all together. That's our guy. And that might be you in some form at age 45. And you're going, I'm still trying to put it together and I'm trying to figure it out and stumble my way. And nobody's ever given me a real heading. Well, that's what we're here for. And I want to tell you four things. Well, number one, God does have a plan for there being a leader in your home. And that leader will drive toward truth and intimacy with God. And that person will be the visionary leader and will know where the family culture is heading and will help build an awesome, resourced wife and equipped and happy children. There is supposed to be a person like that that deals directly with your home, and you're the man. That's you. That's your job. That's one thing I really want to impress upon you, to get that wake up call and to hear it repeatedly, because even if you believe it conceptually, we need to be reminded when we can kind of revert into passivism and laziness and go like, who's running the show? Hello, it's you. That's number one. Number two, you do need tools for equipping, and you need a leadership plan. You got to have an idea of what we're about here. And if you find yourself, well, gee, I'm 23 years old, I've got a wife, where do I go for tools? We'd like to think that you come here for your tools, and we will hand you as many tools as we can on a weekly basis. More than that, if you come to we'd love to give you more tools. Number three, your finances, even if you're the most godly, holy, Bible memorizing kind of guy, and you have a sweet, dear wife, and you're earnest, I want to tell you that your finances can either shipwreck your dreams about your family or create fuel for them. We at Abraham's Wallet, we take finances very seriously, not because they're our goal, but because the management of one's finances is one of the building blocks of godly leadership, period. So we want to help you develop your plan, which we think includes having a family vision statement. We think that it includes you collecting a team of people around you, whether that's friends that are going to encourage you in good, godly stewardship, or whether it's your tax team or your insurance team or whatever, and goals that are at least annual. We want to help you build goals, and we want you to have a financial plan. So that's our guy, and this is why we exist, to deliver these kinds of things. Comments on that, Mark?
The only thing I'll say,
Say it.
I tend to be well, yes, that's all true, but also, and I think my but also is that we know that there's people who have grandkids that are listening to this, and there's people whose wealth far outstrips our own that are listening to this, and
Yeah,
there's people
great.
who are 16 and aren't quite at that phase yet. There's all sorts, and there's even, Stephen, I know this is not, we're not supposed to talk about it. There's even female people who
The
listen to
women
this.
folk?
And just we have to pick somebody to kind of aim at when we're thinking about how can we help people with what we say. It doesn't mean we're not interested in everybody listening to this.
Sure.
It's just who we're kind of pointing the guns at.
Sure. That's because I like to think of this dude who's sort of like, he's hands open. He's got a number of problems. He's like, fill the basket for me. And if you're 65 and you're thinking, well, sands from the hourglass towards retirement are very near. I have some very specific financial needs. The Bible definitely speaks to you, and we're definitely interested in that scenario. We just talk to the guy that needs all the tools as opposed to just a couple of specific things. So what I would like to do today, Mark, is I have drawn a caricature of man X. uh what's Is there a first name that's just a letter? I'm sure there is.
I'm sure Elon's children all have first names that are just letters, right?
Oh, that's right. How about J? J is a man's first name, which is also a letter.
Okay.
So our guy's name is JX because he's Mr. X. JX. Now J, I'm going to describe his scenario, and you are just going to react. Just react to his setup. Give
I
us
This is
your
kind of
thoughts.
a lot of times somebody books a financial planning kind of intro call. Are you the right person to work with me?
Yes,
And sometimes it's clear from very early on that they shouldn't spend their money on a financial planner quite yet. That's just not the best use of their time and money. And I always say, well, lay your situation on me, and let's see if we can at least give you some thoughts to help you kind of take next steps, general
exactly,
education type stuff. But let's do that for Jay. Let's pretend
exactly.
that he has called and Mark is immediately going, I don't think this guy needs to shell out several $1,000s for financial planning right now. That's kind of the mentality I'm going to run with as you give me the hypothetical, purely fictional story of Jay.
You are crystallizing my thoughts. That's it. Okay. Here's what Jay tells us right off the bat. I'm 23 years old. I'm in my first year of a sales job. That I was happy to get this job when I got it, and here I am 10 months in, and I realize I'm making this company a lot of money. I'm doing very well, and I'm very interested, uh, and I think I'm going to be good. I'm getting good, doing good. His income is going up. He has been married. Let's say he got married just before he got this job, so he's been married 15 months, um, and he has no kids. So before I say anything else, what are you thinking about Jay?
I think Jay is. It sounds like Jay is on the path. I think he sounds like a sharp guy. I'm starting to go. I'm starting to come up with some ideas of my first recommendations to Jay, but I don't really want to say them until you've continued to color in this guy's story.
All right. He's eager, he's earnest, he wants help. All
Does
right.
does this guy does he have any sort of spiritual life, Steve?
Oh, yeah, he's an eager beaver. He's a zealous believer. God bless him. He loves the church house, and he thinks there's probably more than he's getting at the church house. And he wants to find men around him. And better than that, he wants to find graybeards around him. He wants elders to kind of father him because he's not from a believing family or the family that he's from. He just thinks the kind of man I want to be what wasn't modeled for me at home. I don't think I can get the kind of answers from my dad that I'm hoping for. So he's very open. He and his wife both work. Let's say she's an educator, so she's a third grade teacher. He has this sales job. She is hoping and praying that she doesn't have to do third grade teaching for the next 25 years. That is not the plan. Um, Now, first signs of trouble here, Mark.
Okay.
$125,000 in student debt.
Okay.
Now that's the bad news. The good news is 6 months ago, when the income started going up, it was $180,000 of debt. So they're kicking that thing. And that is the priority. That is job one in Jay's mind. All of my money and every extra nickel that I get is going to go kill that debt, because that debt represents, I don't know, an albatross around our neck. between the two of them, which I guess is them as a couple now, they have 10,000 in savings. They're living in an apartment, they're renting somewhere. But Mark, Jay would like to own a home someday. So the plan is kill themselves for the next two, 2.5 years, pay off all that debt, then start building up a down payment, and maybe that'll be another 6 months. Buy a house, move into the house, and then pray to God that they get pregnant. That's the next 4 years. What do you think?
I have a couple of questions. How much does Mrs. J make?
Mrs. J makes 40 grand a year.
And is that factored into the 180 or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, where did you get 180?
You told me income was 180.
No, I said that 6 months ago the student loans were
Oh, sorry,
180.
you're right. So what is income, Steve?
Let's say income looks like it's going to be between 90 and 110 this year.
Total for the family. Okay.
90 and 140 based on bonuses. He thinks he could get up to 140 with her 40.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so let's just take an average and say they make $110,000.
Okay.
They're gonna pay about $10,000 in tax. Depending, do we know what state these folks live in?
Why? They live in Ohio, of course.
Okay, let's just round things off and say they've got $100,000 to work with. What are they paying in rent?
They are living in someone's glorified garage apartment, and it's $1,250 a month.
Okay. So I just did some quick math and I'll explain it before we get into things. But when we're at this stage of life, and honestly, it doesn't matter. You could be 55 years old. This is still a good starting point if you're like, I'm trying to figure out my financial life. The first thing I'm thinking about is what does the cash flow situation look like? Are these people, it sounds like they're doing a phenomenal job of managing cash flow because they have paid off $55,000 worth of student loans in the last year,
Heck yeah.
which is no joke. But if we take that $110,000 that they're earning, and we assume about 10,000 of it is going to taxes, they're taking a standard deduction, things like that, and that leaves and then they've paid $55,000 of debt off. That leaves us with after they pay this rent that you've talked about $2,500 a month for
Yes.
everything else.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking about that because I want to know, well, you said they have 10 grand of cash. One of the things, especially in a sales job, anybody who's in a sales job who's listening to this is going, the emergency fund is very important because one year you can make 150 grand and the next year you can make 60 grand if you don't do well, or you can just lose your job. You can go from the best performer to gone in 6 months. That's normal in the world of sales. So I'm really concerned as a starting point with emergency fund. If it costs them $2,500 a month plus rent, so $3,750 a month, the minimum that we like to see in terms of emergency fund is 3 months, but I don't like 3 months for somebody in this position. 3 months of emergency fund would be $11,250. 6 months would be double that, so $22,500. And they're living really pretty frugally, it sounds like. So I would ask, like, does that include everything they're going to need? Have they had to buy tires in the last year?
No.
When they did all this paying off of debt? So it could be like we really need about 30 grand in emergency fund to kind of both cover living expenses for 6 months and some of the one-time things that maybe didn't happen last year. So before I did anything, I I would push pause on this aggressive student loan repayment thing. Obviously, you're not going to be able to stop all payments unless, who knows, by the time this comes out, all the student loan forgiveness stuff will have changed 4 times. Um, but but I would say first order of business is to get a proper emergency fund going, given the high risk of being in a sales role that can just, like I said, change quickly. Um, and the fact that there's probably some one-time stuff that they haven't counted for. So I'd be thinking, man, between twenty and $30,000 is kind of a minimum uh, that I need to just have saved in cash, put it into a high yield savings account, and forget that it exists until there's a true emergency, which does not mean we got an incredible opportunity to go on a vacation with our friends this year and we didn't have the money, so we're going to use the emergency fund. That's not what an emergency is. An emergency is the car broke and we can't get to work if the car is not working, so we will lose our income. So we have to fix it. It's an emergency. That's an emergency.
The necessities of cost of living.
So that's the first thing I would do.
Okay, wait, hold up there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe in conjunction with establishing this emergency fund, as Jay's avatar, I will say we did cut things to the bone to pay off that much of the student debt, and my wife is in a little pain because of it. It's been very lean, and one of my questions is, are we low-doing it until we get this paid off, or how should budgeting work? We're just living off of the minimum we can possibly exist on because I feel this righteous furor over that student debt. So what should I be doing about budgeting?
Every family's going to have to find the system that works for them. But if somebody came to me and said, I don't have anything, what do you recommend? Um, my favorite tool these days, as anybody who has worked with me will tell you, is an app called Monarch Money. I used to be a Mint devotee, and then for I don't know why somebody bought Mint and turned it into like a lead generation tool for home loans or something.
Ew.
So Monarch, you have to pay for it, and the reason I like it is because it allows you to kind of budget to whatever level of precision you can handle. And I don't mean that as an insult. Some people, though, they're like, if you ask me to categorize, have 50 categories of spending and put every penny that I spend into one of those 50 categories so that I know exactly how much I spent on dog shampoo 6 months ago, well, I'm going to quit after 2 weeks. A
Yeah.
lot of people, that's true. And you have to be honest with yourself and go, what level of detail am I ready to steward when it comes to budgeting? And I like Monarch because it'll let you go as high level as we have fixed expenses and variable expenses. So fixed expenses are like my mortgage payment and my student loan and my car payment and maybe my automated savings or my automated giving if I have those things. But it's the things that are the same every month. And the variable expenses are everything else. So in terms of cash flow and like even your long-term financial plan, it really doesn't matter to me as a financial planner if somebody's spending their money on groceries or hair care products. It doesn't really matter what you're spending on with that variable spending, but what really does matter is I don't want you to think, okay, I've got $4,000 a month coming in and I'm spending $3,800 a month, so I should have $200 of wiggle room. If the truth is you're spending $3,800 a month on stuff you spend every month, but then kind of like we said with Jay here, then the car needs tires, and where am I going to get $1,400 to put new tires on my SUV? Um, that stuff happens all the time. So that's that's the trick with budgeting is you have to kind of do it for a long enough time that you start to go, oh yeah, I forgot about I pay for my car insurance every 6 months, so I need to divide that up and put that into a monthly expense, and I need to et cetera, kind of all these things that you might not think of as monthly expenses, but they do happen at least annually. You have to be budgeting for those too, or you'll run out of money and you'll have to dip into that emergency fund, and that's where people end up going, well, I guess throw it on the credit card because we don't have it, and then go back to when to declare financial emergency episode because you're real close to it if you were dipping into let's put it on the credit card. That's like disaster is at your doorstep.
I like you sending me to exit ramps off to different episodes that already exist because that's helpful. Okay, so we've proven we can live below our means. So how much should I be living on?
How much should you be living on? If you're Jay, I'm gonna say there's some things that you know, if you're in Cincinnati, you're going to live on a different amount than if you're in San Diego, for sure. I'm not sure there's a right amount of this is how much you should spend. Some people go, we're happy in that two-bedroom apartment until we have three kids. Other people will say that's just not going to work for us, or even a husband might go, my wife is not doing well in this setting, so I need to provide her either a different place to live, or maybe she needs more resources to really do what she's called to do as kind of the COO of the home front. Um, those things could all factor into the dollar amount you need to live on. But what I will say about Jay is I took his income, I took off the part he was throwing at his debt, and then I was left with a pretty small number after we paid rent. We didn't think about is he paying for health insurance? I'm guessing he is. Is he paying for what's he paying for groceries? We just finished recording a huge series on how much people spend on food. Um, but it sounds to me like he's probably not shoveling money into his 401k at his work, and that might be something to really consider because Jay is a young guy. It sounds like at a pretty big organization. Odds are his employer is willing to give him free money for saving into a retirement account.
So that's another question. Neither me nor the wife are putting money in the 401k, including the matching offer. So, here's a big question for you. What do we do with the mix of debt, the goal of owning a home someday, and 401k slash investments?
Yeah. So the mathematically optimal answer is if you can get a free match on money you're saving into retirement, that's almost never a bad choice. Meaning, there's two things working for him if he decides to put some money into that 401k account, especially if it's matched. One, if you put $1 in and they match that dollar, that's 100% return instantaneously, risk free. It's like the best deal you can get in investing. So that's a great option. And you said Jay is 23. The
Yeah.
money he puts into that account today is worth so much more than the money he puts in when he's 42. And maybe
Really?
by then he's a sales executive making a $500,000 a year. That's not unreasonable to think it's possible if he's doing great.
It's possible.
Right. And so it's easy for him to say, I'm just going to start saving later. But the thing is, if we kind of use a rule of thumb, the money in that account should have the opportunity to double every 7 to 10 years, depending on how it's invested. So the more doublings we can get, it starts to compound at a really increasing rate. So the money he can put in now, if he could be aggressive about saving now, his future self is going to be very happy with his 23-year-old self if he participates in that option.
So if I double money 5 times before I retire, including the doubling I get just by putting the dollar into the 401k, that's better than you think that's better than paying off my 3.7% student loan?
Yeah, I mean, lots of people like to be out from under those student loans, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good goal. I got a question this week from one of our listeners, Steve, saying we have just woken up to the evil of debt, and we want to eliminate all of our debt. And I was like, yes, I like this, good. And we have killed a bunch of big student or credit card debt. We've gotten rid of it. And I said, I really like this too. I'm enjoying this guy's on the track. And then he said, And now we're wondering, should we just stop all of our giving until we've paid off all of our car loans and student loans? And I kind of heard the record scratch noise and said, wait a second. Um, because there is a big difference between a 20% credit card that we talked about this in that other episode about financial emergencies, but you've actually given away money you didn't have. And so the consequences, which might be, I can't give generously right now, um, is a result of your sin.
Woo!
Um,
Ding,
what
ding, 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 ding. Fire engine coming down the street. You pull over.
now there are student loans that are like that, that they're like actually predatory. If you went to one of these for-profit Caribbean schools and got a kind of floofy degree and you realized afterwards, uh-oh, this was a sham and I'm now paying 18% on my student loans, then maybe you put that in the credit card category. But for most people, even if your loans are at 6.5 or 7%, you can pay that off on the regularly programmed repayment schedule. If you can't, then you have other kind of you probably also sinned because you got yourself into a situation without thinking about what you were trying to build. But for most people, they can pay that off. It's just it's a bummer. Hey, I've got a $1,200 a month loan payment. I don't like that. But it's not like this debt that just snowballs because they allow you to make the minimum payment and it grows and grows and grows every month until you're bankrupt. Um, Student loan debt is not, in my mind, usually a total emergency. It's something that you need to factor into your budget. And if you can get rid of it early, do it. Um, I did that. I paid off student loans that I didn't have to pay off. But we just said, okay, we've made some money. We could do a bunch of things with it, but let's pay this off because it would feel really nice to get that off our back.
Okay.
We did that after we had already funded and maxed out retirement accounts and did things like that. So
Oh,
I would say to Jay, um, maybe roll back a little bit, maybe make double the minimum payment on your student loans. So you're still attacking them with vigor, but let's participate in the retirement account. And let's also not just shovel every dollar we have into that account that we're not allowed to touch until we're at retirement age. Let's take a reasonable amount of money and start saving towards a down payment on a home because it sounds like that's something that's really important. Now, housing has also been one of those categories like groceries that has gotten crazy, crazy more expensive recently. So I don't believe you have to own a home in the first 3 years of your marriage. A lot of people stress about that a lot. I would just say if they're renting and what they have is meeting their needs, great. But it sounds like home ownership is something that they would like. It would be a part of what they see as a good life. So why not start putting some money aside that they can use to make a down payment on a home? Um, and I would just take that bucket of $55,000 that they took last year and dumped all into student loans and say, maybe we can be a little bit more thoughtful about how we dice this up between the buckets. Um, the other thing they're going to need to do is say, like, Lord willing, we're not going to have $55,000 next year unless Jay hits that high end of income because we're going to be welcoming some children into this family. Because what is the purpose of marriage? Well, it's godly offspring. And so I would just say make room for that in your budget. And for the love, please do not wait to start growing your family until you've achieved something that feels like financial security. I see it all the time. It's it's a bad idea. Now, I don't think that means you must just go crank out as many kids as you can. I don't know if you listened, but this week Stephen Doug Wilson did a really good episode on birth control, and I think he's a pastor in Idaho that has been really, really conservative on a whole lot of things and kind of outspoken. Um, you might have expected him to say one thing about birth control, but really what struck me is he said, as a husband, you know, he used the example of the biblical laws about your land. You're not supposed to farm your land until it just stops producing. And he said, as a husband, you should think about your wife and your family in the same way, where there are times when everything needs a break. There's also times when you're newlywed where you might say, we could use a year to establish ourselves and hit our stride as a couple. So, all of that, yes. And if this guy's still saying, like, I'm going to start a family as soon as I get this 125,000 of student loans paid off, then I promise you he will buy a house at some point in that time period and go, we're going to start a family as soon as we get this mortgage down below half of what we started it with. Or we're going to start a family when we've bought two new vehicles with no debt on them. Or he'll come up with excuse after excuse. And that could be true of starting a family. That could be true of generosity. It could be the thing where you just get out of the habit of generosity and you use this as an excuse. So I hear it all the time. This goal of like financial independence or financial stability becomes an excuse to actually just do what you want. And I would say to Jay, keep your guard up for this, son, because you're on. It sounds like you're on the path, but there's some dangers lurking out there that could get you.
You would say step one is just immediately go and at least get the match on your 401k, right?
Yeah, are we talking about giving it all? I mean, I
No,
would.
no, no, no.
Okay, okay. With your
No,
first
that's
free cash flow dollars, your available money to do stuff with. Yes.
yeah. The X's are givers. That's not a problem. Um, okay. And you know what else? They don't just give money, just don't just write thoughtless checks to the local church house, which they do support the local church house, but they give money to the things that are on their heart. They're disciple makers. They love the foreign mission field. They're great at that. Okay. So get the 401k match. Then I like your suggestion of maybe paying 200% of the minimum required for the student loans so that you're knocking that principal down. And with the leftover, now we've paid for our life, we've paid for giving, we've set aside tax money, and you're saying with the leftover after paying that 200% of the minimums for the student loans, you say split the leftover. Split the leftover between retirement and working towards a down payment. I like that idea. My question is, out of which of those buckets am I building the emergency fund, or do both of those categories get zero while I build up the emergency fund?
Yeah, given that they have a little bit of emergency fund today, we're not at zero.
Yeah.
I would say if you really felt like it, I would be okay with you getting that 401k match. Meaning it's usually they'll match 100% of the first 3% and half of the next two.
Yeah.
So if you put in 5%, they're giving you 4. That's a pretty standard matching system. I'm okay with going and getting that. Everything else, meaning don't double your student loan payment, don't put extra into the 401k, don't everything else goes into the emergency fund until it gets up to that whatever you decide level. Between
Okay.
in this case, maybe between 20 and 30,000 seems like a good move. Um,
Okay.
that protects all the other stuff because if you go shoveling money into your 401k and then you have that emergency, you get laid off and you have to dip into it and take it out. Not only are you getting taxed on all that money you take out, they're also taking penalties out of every dollar you take out, and it negates the whole benefit of it,
Not
especially when
good.
you're in this lower tax bracket. So I say um, build the emergency fund first because that protects everything else.
Okay. Build the emergency fund. Then we go into this phase two, which is 200% on the debt, then split the leftover between retirement and the down payment. And you are adding into this, do not wait for the making of children. If your wife is up for it and she has a heart, like, let's, honey, I'm waiting on your leadership, dear, but oh, my heart beats to have a little snuggly one in my arms. But whenever you say, honey, I'm gonna do what you say, and you say your leadership is, then let's go.
For sure. I would not delay on that at all because people delay and then they delay a little longer than they thought they should, and then maybe the magical wand they thought they would wave, then children appear, doesn't happen at the level that they thought it would, and it takes them longer to get pregnant, all sorts of
Yes.
things. So I would just say, don't put that one off. The only thing I'd add to your review there, if we're really talking about a family that has 55 grand a year to put towards wealth building, whether that's a debt pay down, that's when it starts to get interesting and go, maybe I do need to talk to somebody to get some outside input. Because I would say there could be a benefit to using something like a health savings account, not to pay for medical bills, but actually as kind of a stealth retirement account. There's a way we've gone through it in the past, HSA hacking, that could actually be even more beneficial than using your 401k after you've gotten the match. There's the question of, should I use a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k with some of my money, or should I be putting it in and not paying taxes on it? There's at what point do I save into a taxable account where I'm investing in things like stocks and bonds? And at what point do I just say, well, I can get 4% on cash right now in a high yield savings. So that's where I should save for my home purchase. Which one should I do if I want to buy a house in 3.5 years? Um, and those are all tougher questions that are going to involve like 2 or 3 more layers of digging before you could get a good answer to those. So that's where I would say that's a lot of money that this family's saying that they think they've got available for wealth building,
Yeah.
and I don't want them to mess it up. So
Okay.
I would say this is a scenario where you actually might do well to bring in some outside help. Um,
Okay. And you're insinuating talk to a financial planner.
Talk to a real financial planner, not somebody who's trying to sell you a insurance policy or just manage your investments, but somebody who's going to think through a long-term plan. Um,
Okay.
you're a unicorn, Jay. You're a unique guy, because most of the time as a financial planner, when I run across somebody who says we've got 50 grand a year that we can use towards long-term wealth building, they make 300 grand a year at
Uh-huh.
least. Um, life is expensive right now, and so I also don't want somebody to listen to us talk about hypothetical Jay and feel like they're a loser if they're saving 18 grand a year when they make 110 as a
No,
family.
no, no,
That's
no.
still really good. So I just think most families that make $110,000 a year don't need to go hire a financial planner.
Yeah.
But in this case, we've got a huge amount of money and we want to make good choices. And bringing in an outside consult, if you don't feel confident, probably will pay off.
Okay. Last question for Jay. JX. His wife, I've come up with his wife's name. Do you want to guess at what his wife's name is?
I don't have any idea.
L.
Uh, okay.
LX has mentioned, because she's seen that they've got these new Toyota Land Cruisers that are out. They're kind of cool, and it looks like there's a deal on them if they buy new, and they can afford it, as you know, but it would maybe move some of their goals backwards. What is Jay to say to L?
It's funny, Stephen, because I know we're in the hypothetical land today, but this is a question that's been bouncing around the parent house a little bit lately. We're in a different financial situation,
I was about to say you're not like Jay.
but I think that the lesson that we've been kicking around is valuable for Jay too, which is just, it's one thing to be able to afford a car payment on your current income in your present reality, but car payments right now, I'm sad to say it, but I saw an 8-year loan available for a car the other day. An 8-year loan. Do you know how? I don't have this detail at my fingertips, but I'm sure that most people don't drive their cars for 8 years. So whatever it is, if it's a 6-year loan or a 5-year loan, a lot can change in 5 years. And for Jay, we've got a sales job. Well, I'm guessing half or more of his compensation is based on commissions. That could change a lot. Hopefully, it changes for the better, but it could also go down. we've got a wife who said, I don't want to be teaching for my whole life, which suggests to me this wife is interested in maybe raising kids with her time. And unfortunately, they don't pay you to do that work. Uh, there might be a change to the family income on that level. And number three, if I add I don't know, even if they put a giant chunk of money down on one of those Land Cruisers, they're gonna have $1,000 a month car payment probably. Um, if I add that, well, my emergency fund need just grew a ton because now if I have 6 months, I just added $6,000 of what 6 months of expenses looks like. Every time I add on expenses, I'm not just growing that month's budget statement. I'm adding, if you go buy a BMW, I saw that they were selling them with a crazy deal. And then I was at the mechanics this week fixing my 2014 Toyota. And I just asked him, I said, what do you think about a BMW? And he said, BMW is like a beautiful woman. Really a lot of fun, but very high maintenance and expensive to keep up. So if you make some of these types of purchases, whether it's a big house, a bigger home, well, that comes with, as you know, all sorts of unexpected expenses. Could just be a nice car. Well, now I've got to buy premium gasoline instead of regular, and so we could come up with a ton of different categories. But I think people, they look at the price tag and they say, I think I can afford that. And they don't play out, well, I just bought a sports car. I'm going to go through tires twice as fast. I'm going to, fill in the blank with whatever luxury or upgrade, lifestyle upgrade that you want. It doesn't have to be this. Um, I guarantee you, once you go from vacationing road trip to a national park to flying business class to Europe, you're probably not going back to road tripping to the national park unless you're forced to. So every time you upgrade the lifestyle, you're adding generally a long tail of expense onto your
Wow,
budget.
that's a great point.
I would caution Jay. We've while I said you don't have to just go after the debt like a crazy person, you still got a lot of debt, and let's get that done with before we start thinking about big lifestyle upgrades like a new Land Cruiser.
Great point. It's a matter of, as you say, you're weighing various goals in your life, and you might want to end up in a Land Cruiser. Okay, that's all right. If you insert that Land Cruiser at this point in your life, Jay, your other goals are going to be pushed way out farther. And you're trying to prioritize the building of a family and financial stability so that you can build a successful life. And I am just so sorry to tell you, L, if you're listening, but having a nice Land Cruiser is not going to serve the purposes of creating financial stability for where you are in your life right now. So we want Jay to focus on getting that debt down and starting to build the emergency fund, number one, getting the debt down at a reasonable pace. You don't have to kill yourself to do it. Starting to build up long-term investment / retirement money, and while starting to build up that down payment so that you can get into a house. So those goals aren't the same at every stage of your life, but that's what it's like for a 23-year-old.
I want you to kind of tie a bow on all this, and then I want to tell a lovely story because we ended up talking about my just adorable mechanic Milton. Um,
Okay,
I would love to tell a story. You can decide whether it has a place in this podcast or not, but I'll tack that on as just a bonus ending.
lovely. Lovely. So I just reviewed the kind of target that we have at Abe's Wallet. If that's you, not only do we want to be giving you tools, but we want avenues to talk to you so that you can tell us what tools you want. I spend time with guys on a weekly basis, talking with them. That's what the whole point of is, for those people to talk to one another, to get resources from each other, and have a feedback loop to talk to us. We want to furnish people with the kind of resources that they need to run their home and their dough like a biblical boss. I have to throw out, because we are going to be traveling some this year, I just have to throw out that we're coming to Texas soon. A couple of dates that we'd like to throw to people. We're going to be in Houston on June the 5th. If you're a listener in Houston and you'd like some FaceTime with us, we might not be able to give you 3 hours, but I bet we could give you 30 minutes around a coffee or a taco. We'd love for you to shout. You can write to me, Steve at abrahamswallet.com, and tell us where you are. We'd love to see you. We're going to be seeing clients and Abe's Wallet listeners while we're in Texas. And I must throw out Friday, June 6th in Plano. That's North Dallas. One of our listeners, a good friend of the pod, has a lovely home, a big spread, a nice, big, lovely patio on the back with the pickleball court and the whole thing. We're going to have an Abe's Wallet gathering and just a party, just to spend time with people. It's going to be very casual, but there will be delicious Texas food there. The evening of Friday, June 6th, a mixer hoedown for our people. Please tell us if you're anywhere near, and you can. We would love for you to be part of that. Write to me, Steve at abrahamswallet.com, and we'll plan on seeing you then. So tell us about the wonderful mechanic.
All right, just to close this out. A lot of you guys are business owners. Some of you guys are working as employees, and sometimes you're tempted to go, I don't know if I need to give 100% to my boss. I want to just tell you the story of Milton, my mechanic. I went in last week for a brake job, and I was fully expecting to spend $1,000 getting my brakes replaced because they were shimmying a bit and things like that. And they did give me a brake job. They put new rotors, and they said my pads were good. And Milton came out and he said, Mark, I noticed in our records, we worked on this car's brakes 363 days ago. And he said, I warranty everything I do for at least a year. And he's like, so none of this is costing you any money. I did all this work for free. I just thought, guys, if you're listening to this, short story to tell you, go work as unto the Lord. I don't know if Milton knows the Lord, but man, he runs his business kind of like a biblical boss.
Let's send Utah people to Milton. Where is he?
His business is called Autograph Motors. It's right downtown. And man, I couldn't recommend a mechanic more.
Oh my goodness.
The guy's awesome.
You're never going to go anywhere else because of his honesty.
That's right.
That's wonderful. I hope all of you dudes out there become Miltons in your own fields. Guys, run your home and your dough like a biblical boss. See you next time.